Hey, welcome in, folks. Great to see you on this Sunday. Got an update for you on double trouble. Not one, but two major winter storms on the way. One starting today through the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic. The next one going into early of this coming week with record and historic southern snow and ice expected from the Texas Gulf Coast all the way up through the Carolinas. Now, if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Gerald. I'm a meteorology major at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte. And if you haven't already, go ahead, like the video, subscribe, and hit that bell for the latest notifications. Also, go ahead and comment. Let me know where you're watching from, and follow me on X or Twitter, whatever you'd like to call it, for more frequent updates. The link for that is in the description. All right, folks, let's go ahead and get into that timing, the latest data, and the latest totals for both of these storm systems. And we'll start by looking at what's right next to me. This is the latest run of our North American model, or the NAM is another kind of thing that people call it, just to abbreviate it. And you can see that double trouble potential with not one, but again, two winter weather events. There's number one in the Northeast, and then here comes number two, diving down through Texas, Louisiana, and through areas just very far south that do not get winter weather very often. And that is setting the stage for, again, multiple areas of high impacts expected from these storm systems. This is our overall winter storm impact index from the Weather Prediction Center just now through the next 3 days. So this gets us into Tuesday. And you can kind of see that bimodal threat here, one into the Northeast, another into the South, and you could argue a trimodal threat, if you will. We've even got this lake effect to worry about on top of our nor'easter and on top of our record historic southern snow. So a whole bunch of folks going to get in on very impactful winter weather throughout the next 5 days or so, and it's going to be one of those stretches that I think we look back on and we might not realize quite how crazy it is right now, but going on down the road, we'll probably think about, wow, I remember that week in January of 2025, that was crazy. I think it's going to be one of those setups here with both of these storm systems. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at some data here. Obviously, for snow, you need cold air, and here it comes pushing south. You can see that push of cold air over the past day or so started up into Canada and is slowly but surely oozing south and eastward. That's going to set the stage for winter weather for just about anybody that can get precipitation to fall from the sky outside of maybe central and southern Florida. So it's one of those setups. We've got the cold air. Here it is. It's locking into place. It's that fresh injection of Arctic air out ahead of these storm systems, and that's a recipe for some very interesting times here in the world of weather. Now, this is also brand new, hot off the press. These are our current alerts, and you can see the map really beginning to fill in. And once more, you can also pick out that threat that we have in two separate areas. One area all the way back from today, starting into Kentucky, portions of Tennessee, and the North Carolina mountains, all the way up into the down east areas of Maine, seeing winter weather advisories in the pink, or in the purple rather, and winter storm warnings in that pink color. And then you look back south, check out area number two, winter storm watches in effect, folks, for Atlanta, Montgomery, Jackson, New Orleans, Louisiana. By the way, last time New Orleans saw any sort of accumulating winter weather was 2009. And this could really just shatter all sorts of records for you folks down there. And would really definitely be one that's remembered for quite some time. So you can see that double mode threat, all those winter weather watches through the deep south, and then those winter storm warnings up into the Northeast and portions even of the Ohio Valley and the Mid-Atlantic. Things are heating up for sure out there as we continue to progress closer to these storm systems. And when I say close, I mean super close for our friends in the Northeast. Today's the day that we get that winter weather to begin. This is kind of what we're seeing out there right now. You can see some of that snow already beginning to fall here into eastern Kentucky, portions of West Virginia, even northern Tennessee, getting in on some light snow and then some showers in the Carolinas where that cold front is still kind of lagging behind just a little bit, but don't worry, it will get to you eventually too if you're a fan of the cold. But unfortunately, this will be kind of pipe bursting cold, not just chilly weather, but very cold, Arctic, dangerous kind of cold as this crosses on through. So you can see that snow beginning, like I said, into areas of the Mid-Atlantic and even the kind of eastern Ohio Valley here today. And as we go through this afternoon, the storm continues to progress and move northbound. And it's at that point that the Northeast is then put under the bullseye. And let's go ahead and dive on into that and kind of zoom on in for you folks up here. So here we go. This is about noon this afternoon, 12 p.m. Big playoff game in Philadelphia. Go Eagles. And if you're kind of out there tailgating before the game, the snow likely to start falling right around this afternoon. We're probably going to have some snow into D.C., Baltimore, and you can see that shield covering areas from West Virginia all the way up into Pennsylvania, into the Hudson Valley. Could start as some rain in places like Philadelphia and New York City this afternoon. But as we continue to move this ahead, I noticed that rain snow line crashing south could deal with a little bit of sleet trying to mix in at times here along the I-95. Definitely is a slight concern, but I definitely think a little bit inland from there, right into this area, is going to get absolutely just a pace bomb of a storm here. Out of such a quick hitting storm. Again, this is not going to last very long. This is by 5 p.m. This is right at the heart of the Eagles game. We're going to see that snow coming down. Absolute whiteout conditions are possible at times as we get these very heavy bands of snow. But look how quickly this is moving. We'll move it ahead. By the time we get to 9 p.m., you're basically done in Philadelphia. It's still snowing in New York City. We're snowing good in Boston. I think Boston's another area that could get big snow out of this system. It continues to work northbound during the overnight and the evening. The down east areas of Maine getting in on that heavy band of snow, seeing snow all the way down to the coastline of Connecticut, Rhode Island, into the Hudson Valley of New York, northern New Jersey, really much in New Jersey in general, at least getting some snow out of this. And then on the backside, this continues and we're waking up. This is early tomorrow morning and we're done already with the storm, outside of some kind of flurries and light snow showers on the backside. But at that point, then the lake effect machine cranks up, and check out these lake effect streamers coming into the Tug Hill, into areas from Erie up to Buffalo. Going to see plenty of snow during the day Monday, and then going to kind of continue into the overnight of Monday into Tuesday. So the big question, how much snow are we talking? Well, let's dive down to these areas further south first, and then we'll talk about our friends a little bit further up to the northeast. Now, areas like Kentucky, it's one of those places we haven't really talked a lot about, but you're going to get some good snow here in the eastern half of the state, back over towards Pikeville, closer to the West Virginia border. This is going to be a good 2 to 4 inch snow event, I think, is going to be pretty likely. And then you get down into the mountains of West Virginia, Western Maryland, even the mountains down here of the Smokies, a nice winter storm with potentially upwards of half a foot plus of snow before all is said and done over the next 2 days. Down here into the mountains of North Carolina, another place, those ski resorts getting into prime ski season. We're going to get some snow on the front end and then that Arctic blast on the back end. Yeah, it's going to be a great week for skiing up into North Carolina, or really any of these resorts out here. And then we kind of shift up north to the northeast, and this is where we could get some of the really big totals. DC, Baltimore, you're going to kind of be on the edge here. I think more of a 1 to 3, maybe 2 to 4 inch snow event. But once you get to Philly northbound, that's where this could be a much more notable storm system with even moderate winter storm impacts. Philadelphia, New York City, this is the National Weather Service forecast. Kind of going for that 3 to 6 inch range, maybe about 4 or 5 in Philly, 4 or 5 in New York City. But you go just a little bit inland from there, up into northern New Jersey, back into the Scranton area, back out into Bucks County. Could definitely see half a foot, 8 inches of snow. And then you get up towards northern Connecticut into Massachusetts. Latest forecast for Boston calling for about 5 to 7 inches of snow. Same story for areas to the west of there, and even into northern Rhode Island. Going to see very impressive snowfall totals out of this. Now, this kind of area I have circled here. In fact, let me maybe circle it a little bit more in depth right into here. This is an area I would watch for the potential for somebody to get double-digit snowfall. Can somebody in here crack maybe, we'll say 10 to 12 inches of snow? I think it's a very real possibility as this storm really kind of cranks up. And like I said, it's a quick-hitting system. So if you get 10 inches or a foot of snow out of a storm that only lasts maybe 6 or 8 hours, those are some very impressive snowfall rates. And definitely going to be one of those quick-hitting, memorable ones here into the Northeast throughout the day today, and then even into the overnight up through the down east areas of Maine, where half a foot to a foot of snow is also going to be pretty widespread. All right, so the northeast storm moves through, then the cold air settles in. Take a look at these high temperatures tomorrow afternoon. I mean, folks, this is, again, Arctic air that is spilling southward. Highs struggling to crack freezing into areas very far south through Arkansas, northern Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, the upstate of South Carolina. Going to only be in the 30s for highs tomorrow. Same story for Charlotte, Raleigh, much of Texas only getting into the 30s and very low 40s. And that sets the stage for tomorrow night when that cold air continues to lock into place. Check out overnight lows Monday going into Tuesday. Remember, Tuesday morning's about when our storm's going to start to crank up down here. And when we've got temperatures in the 20s and teens in Louisiana into kind of Texas here, and back through areas of the deep south, yeah, you're going to get some winter weather when those two overlap. Now, areas further north where we're not going to get snow, it's still going to be brutally cold into the northern plains. We've got low temperatures into the negative teens and negative 20s. Yeah, not normal, but negative numbers there into the upper Midwest and into the northern Rockies, the northern plains. Very cold morning lows into the northeast. The interior going to get near zero. The I-95 corridor likely approaching single digits by Tuesday morning, and then frigid air all the way down to the Gulf Coast. Check this out. Areas like Gainesville, Florida could crack the freezing mark by the time we're waking up Tuesday. That's how far south this cold air is getting. We're talking lows near 40 in Tampa, down near 50 into Fort Myers. Again, everyone going to get in on the cold out of this event. And that sets the stage for what will be likely a historic winter storm in the deep south. Now, I'm going to go ahead and pause right here and kind of address the elephant in the room for my friends in the Carolinas, Georgia, Alabama. And if you don't follow me on X or Twitter, or you're just not active on there, then I'll try to kind of paint the picture for you here. There have been kind of a very depressing vibe, if you will, from the snow lovers in that area over the model runs since about yesterday. And I'll go ahead and tell you now, do not overreact at this range. We're just now getting into mesoscale range. We haven't even seen the high resolution rapid refresh yet. We're just now into NAM range. We haven't seen a whole bunch of these other suite of mesoscale models. And this is one of those setups that synoptically, or the big picture is important, but those little tiny details are going to have a big impact on how much snow we get down into the southeast. Now, for Louisiana, Texas, we feel pretty good on that forecast. And because of that, I'll go ahead and show you snowfall total projections here in just a moment. But just to remind everyone, we are not there yet. This is a Tuesday night, Wednesday storm for most of us. We're only on Sunday morning. I mean, the sun just rose on Sunday. So we've got plenty of time to watch the models. And I can tell you from experience, and everyone watching this probably knows as well, these storms can change up to the last second. So you got to stay posted, stay tuned. Things are going to continue to change either for the better or the worse. And that's what we're going to try to find out. But just that kind of little disclaimer here at the beginning. All right. So here's the setup from our latest European model. It all comes down to kind of a bimodal trough, if you will. We've got two pieces of energy. This is our northern stream energy. This is that injection of very cold Arctic air, and then that's kind of getting pushed and extended to another area of kind of a higher end level of storm energy down into the desert southwest. Now, it's all of this energy that's going to fire off our storm. We'll move this ahead into time. Here's what happens. Our trough orientation works in, and this is why we are kind of struggling a little bit with some of the models into the Carolinas. Notice the orientation of this trough. This is a very positively tilted trough, as we say in meteorology. And generally, again, generally, not one size fits all by any means, but generally speaking, positively tilted troughs produce less powerful storm systems. That's one piece of the equation. Another piece of the equation that I think a lot of people are forgetting about here is just how unstable the atmosphere is down here in kind of this shaded area. This is a zone of what we call baroclinic instability. Just to summarize that in normal terms and not with all the fancy scientific jargon in there, that's an area that low pressure just wants to form. That's an area a storm system is just a favorable area for one to get going or for cyclogenesis to occur. Now, why is that? Well, you've got this very cold Arctic air pushing southbound, and it's running into the Gulf of Mexico, which granted it's winter, but it's still a lot warmer than air that is coming from the Arctic Circle. And you get that very sharp gradient that creates a natural pressure gradient, and you get just a little bit of spin over it, and that creates a pretty quick process where low pressure wants to develop. So it's kind of a mix of kind of weak-ish upper level support combined with very strong surface support for the storm, and that's why either way we're going to get a storm. The question is, how strong is that storm? Another question is, does this trough try to become negative a little bit quicker? If it can, then we could really bump up our snowfall totals here into the Carolinas, Georgia, and even potentially into southeastern Virginia. Now, overnight and yesterday, the models kind of said that's not going to happen so much. But like I said, I will remind you, we've got a way to go before this is completely set in stone. And we'll start down here in the southern plains, and then we'll move east. So this is the latest NAM model. I think doing a pretty good job with the storm, honestly. You can see this is Monday afternoon, a quick hitting band of snow up into Kansas, Oklahoma, even into the panhandle there, Texas. But the real show begins. This is Tuesday morning. We're waking up about 7 a.m., 6 a.m. local time, and you can see that kind of purplish color indicating sleet and that blue snow. So I am expecting kind of a snow sleet mix down here into South Texas. And I mean, look at this, folks. It's snowing all the way back into Mexico. And this is not, the higher terrains of Mexico. This is just good old fashioned Mexico here on the other side of the Rio Grande. And that's just, it goes to show how impressive this setup is that we're getting snow and ice this far south. Now, later Tuesday morning into Tuesday afternoon, I think this is when the show really begins through Houston, Baton Rouge, back into Slidell, New Orleans, right along that I-10 corridor. The question will be who gets more snow, who gets more ice. I think this corridor, just kind of north of I-10 in Louisiana, is going to be the real winner with snow south of there through New Orleans and kind of these coastal communities back into Houston. You're going to get snow, but it's going to be snow and sleet, maybe even more sleet than snow. And that'll kind of cut down on your totals a little bit. But either way, an impactful winter storm. And another thing to add, sleet is arguably more impactful than snow. Now, it doesn't accumulate as quickly, but it takes way longer to melt. And for areas down here that just aren't equipped to get it off the roads, that could cause big problems. But again, this is Tuesday afternoon. I think this is the peak of the storm for most folks. And then continues into Tuesday evening and kind of begins to wind on down through Texas and eventually through Louisiana by overnight Tuesday into the early morning hours of Wednesday. Now, how much snow and ice are we talking? Well, let's start with the snowfall totals. This is the latest blend of models, and I think has a pretty good idea here of what's going to happen. Houston, back down into New Orleans, this kind of corridor right along the coast. I would say right into here is going to be a good 1 to 3 inch kind of sleet snow mix event. I'll even put a plus in here. There's a chance if you get a little bit more snow than sleet, you could be on the higher end of that. So that's kind of the coastal communities down here. I would even probably include Baton Rouge on that. Put Baton Rouge a little bit on the higher end. You're a little north of NOLA there, so maybe closer to the 2 to 3 inch range. Now you get north of there, and this is where I think we're going to run into just some crazy things that we don't see very often. Right here into the heart of Louisiana and into kind of the southwestern sections of Mississippi there, north of I-10, this is where we could get maybe a 3 to 6 inch plus event. Again, I'm going to put the plus in there because I would not be surprised if somebody cracks 7, 8 inches of snow in there out of this event. But most of us in that region are going to be in that 3 to 6 inch range. So that's just kind of the crazy stuff. And then where the forecast gets a lot more uncertain is up here just south of Dallas, back into areas around Jackson and north of there where it could be absolutely nothing. Or you could get, a quick burst of 3 inches of snow if this storm gets far enough north. So that's kind of the progression here of the storm. You see that bullseye in the middle. If you're too far south, maybe a little too much ice. If you're too far north, maybe just nothing at all. And that's kind of the problem you run into with a forecast like this with this storm system. But either way, historic proportions for an area that just is not used to it. And I keep throwing that analogy around, but the swamps and the alligators are going to be watching the snowfall. So just to kind of put that in perspective, pretty crazy stuff. That you just do not see very often. In fact, almost kind of one of those once-in-a-decade type storms, arguably maybe even longer than that. All right, so ice, another concern. Now, I think sleet will be a bigger deal than freezing rain, but we could see some freezing rain down here into New Orleans, down into the Gulf Coast of Louisiana, and especially back down here into extreme southern Texas. I think the most we see is a quarter, or maybe a 1/10 of an inch to a 1/4 of an inch in a worst case scenario, but I think it's really going to be more of a sleet and snow fest and less so much freezing rain, but that could mix in and lower your totals. But either way, frozen stuff is falling from the sky, so I don't expect a pure ice event in here. Might start as ice or maybe start as snow, then go to ice, then back to snow. It's going to be one of those kind of tough forecasts, but some ice mixing in here for sure. All right, now let's move it to the east, and let me move us back ahead in time. This is, again, the latest NAM model. We'll move it all the way back to kind of where we left off. So this is Tuesday afternoon. The calm before the storm in the Carolinas and Georgia, and even Florida, I would say. It's relatively quiet. It's cold. The clouds are building in Tuesday afternoon, but you should have most of the day to kind of get anything left, finished, done, depending on what that may be. Then we go into the overnight, and here comes the storm, beginning to work into southern Alabama, southern Georgia, and into the Florida Panhandle. Now, right into this area, I'll kind of draw an area right into here. This is where I'm pretty confident we're going to get some pretty good winter weather. I would say, again, like Louisiana, those southern areas, that 1 to 3 inch range of maybe sleet, snow mix kind of mess. And again, folks, it's crazy to think, but places like Destin, Pensacola, Panama City Beach, you could be getting sleet falling on the beaches of Florida. It's just not something you see very often. So even if it's not a lot of it, it's still a historic storm and one that is just it still blows my mind to even kind of say out loud. It's like I'm in a dream and I'm waiting to wake up talking about this thing. So there we go. That very deep south snow and ice threat. Feeling pretty good that'll happen. Now, this is where the forecast gets a little bit more tricky, and I'll show you why in a second when I look at a couple different models. It's right into this region of North Carolina and South Carolina. We'll say from Virginia Beach all the way back down to Raleigh, Fayetteville, Columbia, Florence, areas like that. It's a tough forecast, especially kind of a tricky forecast in the Triad, Charlotte, Greenville, Spartanburg. So there's kind of layers to this of difficulty. Down along the beaches, we feel pretty good. You're going to get winter weather. Now, I'm not completely sold it's going to be all snow right now. I know a lot of people here in Myrtle Beach and Fayetteville and the Outer Banks are thinking, all right, nice, we're going to get an all snowstorm. Hold your horses, maybe not so much, and you can see that problem on the NAM already down near Beaufort into kind of the Charleston area, Hilton Head, and Tybee Island. Already seeing that snow kind of fade to more ice on this model overnight Tuesday, but snow inland from there, back up near maybe Orangeburg, Florence. You can see this nice kind of coastal area. The thing we're missing, though, is kind of to the north. Look at this. Charlotte, not really much of anything. Columbia, not much of anything. Greenville, Spartanburg, definitely far from the fun. Even Raleigh, kind of far from the fun on this model run. Now, I know this is, again, I've seen the Twitter posts. I've seen the depressing comments everywhere saying, there goes our snow in Columbia or Fayetteville or Lumberton or whatever place you may be in, or Charlotte or any of these areas. Hold your horses. Again, it is Sunday morning, and I mean early Sunday morning when I'm recording this. This is projected to be early Wednesday morning. So that gives us Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That's 3 days, folks, for the models to figure this thing out. And when we're talking southern snow and ice, it's going to take that sort of time. Let's go back a little bit to a week ago. At this point in Charlotte, it looked like we were going to get a nice 2 to 4 inch snowstorm. What happened? Not even really half an inch of a sleet, icy just mess throughout the city. So things change at 3 days out. Heck, they change sometimes, an hour out. That's just the way that meteorology is. And there's always a joke going around, we get paid to be wrong. And you know what? Fine. If that's the way you want to look at it, fine with me. But go ahead and expect this to be wrong and not be a perfect model run. Another great saying I love is every model is wrong. Some models are useful. I think that really summarizes this great. So do not lose hope here. But either way, confidence remains high for a big, at least coastal winter storm, potentially a big Piedmont winter storm, and maybe even a foothills winter storm if this thing really trends back up. So that's the NAM. You can see that big coastal kind of mess happening even into the Outer Banks. We've got snow Wednesday morning, and then a big ice storm as well into southern Georgia and the Florida Panhandle is another thing we'll need to watch for. And then this filters on out of here by Wednesday. By the way, that might not be the end of it, folks. We might have another little winter storm to track later next week in the south. So, all right, here's the European. I'm going to kind of breeze through it because it's pretty similar to the NAM. We talked about areas further east. Now, a little bit further inland on the snow shield on the European. You see Atlanta even trying to get some light snow. Charlotte right on the edge of the snow. Columbia in the snow shield on this one. Same story really with the beaches, kind of the snow, mainly snow on the European. I think the NAM's a little closer to reality, though. I would be surprised if we get an all-snow event down here to Charleston, Beaufort, areas like that. Maybe a little more likely up into kind of Horry County, into the Lumberton, Fayetteville, Wilmington area. A little more likely for all snow there, but I think we're going to get some ice mixing in down here towards South Carolina and Georgia, especially deep south into Georgia. Likely going to be more ice than maybe this model projects, but you get the point. It's still a winter storm and an impactful one with very cold temperatures right before and after, so anything that falls would stick on the ground. Now, here's when the real negative Nellies come out. Here's a GFS model run. Let me go ahead and move this ahead into time. Again, the same story for Texas and Louisiana. We feel confident there. I would even say Mississippi and Alabama and even the Florida Panhandle. You get to Georgia, South Carolina. Here's the GFS, folks. I mean, it's just an absolute buzzkill. It really does not have much happening. And is this a possibility? Yeah, it's a possibility. Is there also a possibility that we get more than any of the models show? That is also a possibility at this range. So it's just one of those things. I got to give you the options on the table, and we're going to go with, right now we don't know, but we're going to kind of look at all the options and continue to kind of, iron out the details here. Now, here's the good news for snow lovers. This is the European ensembles. This is the chance of at least an inch of snow. Like we said back west, it's happening in Louisiana. Go ahead and expect it. And it's also very likely to happen into southern Georgia, Alabama, and into coastal sections of the Carolinas. Now, again, this could be some sleet, but snow, sleet, some sort of frozen precip. Heck, even all the way down into the western Florida Panhandle, going to get some sort of winter weather out of this, is what the European ensembles say. Columbia running even an all right shot of winter weather. It gets less up into the kind of corridor of I-85 from Charlotte to Greenville, Spartanburg, Birmingham, down into Atlanta. Less chance of accumulating snowfall. But like I said, there's a very real chance this trends back northwest a little bit, and that's kind of what always happens. Not to say it's guaranteed to happen here, but I would go and expect at least some sort of snow in those areas, even if it's just some flurries, or maybe a period of light snow, heck, maybe even a period of moderate snow, depending on how crazy the trends get. But either way, the European is still very confident in winter weather through this area. Coastal South Carolina in the good numbers, coastal North Carolina in the great numbers here. And then the buzzkill GFS, not nearly as excited. But folks, it's kind of interesting. All of a sudden, everyone's looking at the GFS and saying, all right, it's happening. We're not going to get this snow. But a couple days ago, when the GFS showed a big storm, everyone said, oh, the GFS is crazy. Well, is it crazy now or not? We've got to, kind of make up our minds here. And the entire time, I've stuck to the European. I think the European is closer to reality. I think the NAM I showed you is closer to reality. I would be shocked if a GFS solution like this happens and this storm basically fizzles out. I would be shocked. Now, not to say that can't happen, but I think this is like a 10% chance of happening compared to the European, which is probably more like a 40-50% chance of happening. And then the other kind of scenarios are those other probabilities. So that's that. My friends in the east, up the East Coast, what about you? Well, there is an outside shot. If our storm can crank up enough and try to ride up the coast, we could get a more impactful storm in areas of the Northeast. Now, kind of draw the question mark zone, I would say, is right into here. You don't see very high totals right now, but if we get a big kind of amplified storm and it can ride up the coast just a little bit, areas like Charlotte, Raleigh, Central Virginia, up into the Delmarva, maybe even the DMV, back into maybe the Western Carolinas, could get a bigger storm than currently modeled. And at 3 days out, there is room for that to happen. Will it happen? Your guess is probably as good as mine, but I think what this map shows right now is a safe bet. Very high likelihood for snow along the beaches or ice, some sort of winter weather, and then kind of a medium shot here into the more Piedmont-y foothill areas of the Deep South. So that's kind of what we're looking at there. And then let's see if, let me see if I can give you a spoiler alert. Yeah, not much going on here, but there is a slight chance that maybe we get another round of winter weather. See this little area popping up by about Thursday, Friday. We'll see if that happens or not, but just a little spoiler alert there for you in the long run. Alrighty, folks, well, that's all I got for you. Again, go ahead and like the video, subscribe, hit the bell for the latest notifications, and definitely come back tonight for another update. I might go live. I might not have an evening video. I might just go live. I don't know yet. We'll see how the Eagles game goes, and then I'll kind of figure it out from there. But with that said, y'all have a great one. Stay safe, stay warm. I'll see you all next time.